Genoa City is once again heading into a storm of betrayal, manipulation, and high-stakes consequences that could change everything for the people involved. At the center of this chaos is Victor Newman, a man who never hesitates when it comes to power. This time, Victor has taken things even further by unleashing a newly developed AI system designed to protect his empire. But instead of bringing clarity, this technology has created a dangerous situation. The AI system has produced a set of emails that appear to prove illegal activity involving Phyllis Summers, Kane Ashby, and Billy Abbott. According to these digital records, the trio is allegedly connected to a scheme targeting Newman Enterprises. What makes this situation even more complicated is that the evidence does not just affect one person, it pulls multiple lives into a single web of suspicion. Billy Abbott suddenly finds himself dragged into something far bigger than he ever expected. Victoria Newman, Billy's ex-wife and the mother of his children, is also caught in the middle of this unfolding crisis. When she learns about the evidence and its impact, her reaction is not what Billy might have hoped for. Instead of fully defending him, Victoria appears cautious and emotionally distant. While she does not directly accuse Billy, she also does not strongly oppose the direction the situation is heading. That silence alone may have serious consequences. Meanwhile, Christine Blair, acting in her legal capacity, warns Victoria that this situation could escalate quickly. The legal pressure is building, and once the system starts moving, it may become impossible to stop. Billy, however, is not just facing legal trouble, he is also dealing with personal stakes that cut much deeper. His life with Sally Spectra is entering a new chapter as they prepare for a baby together. Billy has made promises to be present, responsible, and committed to building a future with her. But that future is now at risk. If Billy gets arrested, everything he is trying to build with Sally could collapse instantly. The timing could not be worse, and the emotional pressure on him is already starting to rise. What makes things even more intense is Billy's growing belief that Victoria may be indirectly responsible for what is happening. Even if she did not directly create the situation, her actions or lack of resistance are starting to feel like betrayal in his eyes. Billy begins to question everything, including the history he shares with Victoria and whether she still has any loyalty toward him at all. As tension builds, one thing becomes clear: this is no longer just a business conflict. It is turning into a deeply personal war involving trust, love, and betrayal. And in Genoa City, when emotions and power collide, the outcome is never simple. The pressure in Genoa City continues to rise as the AI-generated evidence spreads further into the legal system. What once looked like a private corporate conflict is now becoming a full-scale criminal investigation involving some of the city's most powerful names. At the center of this next wave of chaos is Billy Abbott. As the investigation gains momentum, law enforcement begins to act on the information provided through Victor Newman's AI system. The emails, appearing detailed, structured, and convincing, paint a serious picture of corporate conspiracy and illegal interference at Newman Enterprises. And this is where everything shifts. Billy suddenly finds himself facing direct legal consequences. Without much warning, he is taken into custody. The moment is swift, public, and deeply humiliating. Handcuffs are placed on him as stunned onlookers witness the scene unfold. Among them is Sally Spectra. Sally is completely unprepared for what she sees. Just moments ago, she and Billy were building dreams about their future together, including the baby they are expecting. Now, that entire future feels like it is collapsing in real time. Her emotional shock is immediate. This is not just about Billy being accused, it is about their entire life plan being thrown into uncertainty. The man she trusted, loved, and planned a family with is now being led away under suspicion of serious wrongdoing. Billy, on the other hand, is overwhelmed with anger and disbelief. As he is taken away, his mind is not just focused on the arrest itself, but on how quickly everything has fallen apart. He does not fully understand how deeply the AI-generated evidence has influenced the situation, but he knows one thing for sure: someone close to him may have played a role in letting it happen. That suspicion starts to point toward Victoria Newman. Victoria, who shares a long and complicated history with Billy, is now indirectly connected to the fallout. Whether she intended it or not, her silence and political positioning around the situation are beginning to look like quiet acceptance of his downfall. This realization fuels Billy's emotional rage. Even in custody, his thoughts keep returning to Victoria. He begins to question whether she truly stood by him at any point or whether she allowed circumstances to unfold in a way that would remove him from her life completely. Meanwhile, Sally is left devastated outside the chaos. Her focus shifts instantly from shock to fear. If Billy is truly facing prison time, what does that mean for their unborn child? How will she navigate a future where the father of her baby may not be free to be present? The emotional weight is now unbearable for her. Back in Genoa City's elite circles, the arrest sends shockwaves. People begin to realize that Victor Newman's AI system is not just a business tool, it is becoming a weapon capable of destroying reputations and breaking families apart. And as Billy sits in custody, one truth becomes clear. This is no longer just about business, evidence, or technology. It is about betrayal, control, and a power struggle that is only just beginning. Billy Abbott's arrest sends shockwaves through every corner of his personal and professional life, but the real damage begins after the initial chaos settles. Once the reality of the situation sinks in, emotions start to take over logic. Inside custody, Billy is not just thinking about the charges against him, he is thinking about betrayal. At the center of his anger is Victor Newman. For Billy, this is not simply a legal case built on AI-generated emails. It feels personal. It feels targeted. And more importantly, it feels like someone who once meant everything to him may have allowed him to fall. Billy starts replaying every recent interaction with Victoria. Every conversation, every disagreement, every moment of distance between them suddenly feels like a setup for what is happening now. The pain quickly turns into rage. He believes Victoria had the power to question the situation more strongly, to push back harder, or to defend him in a meaningful way. Instead, from his perspective, she remained emotionally distant and politically neutral while his life began to fall apart. That silence becomes louder than any accusation. Billy's anger reaches a breaking point as he realizes something that hurts even more than the arrest itself. He may no longer be able to trust Victoria in any capacity, not even as the mother of his children. Outside the legal system, Sally Spectra is dealing with her own emotional collapse. Sally is overwhelmed, not just by fear, but by uncertainty. The future she was building with Billy is now hanging by a thread. Their plans for a baby, their shared dreams, and their attempt to create stability all feel like they are slipping away. She is left asking herself difficult questions. Can she raise a child under these circumstances? Can she trust that Billy will even be present in their lives if this situation continues to escalate? And most importantly, is this the beginning of a long-term separation rather than a temporary crisis? The emotional weight is becoming too much to carry. Meanwhile, the legal situation continues to develop in the background. The AI-generated evidence remains at the center of the case, and investigators are treating it as credible enough to justify serious action. However, there are growing whispers that something about the evidence may not be as solid as it appears. The structure of the emails, the timing patterns, and the unnatural consistency begin to raise quiet doubts among those reviewing the case more closely. Still, none of that is enough to help Billy right now. Back in Genoa City, Victor Newman remains in control of the larger situation. His AI system has achieved exactly what it was designed to do: create leverage and shift power. But the consequences are starting to ripple in ways even Victor may not fully anticipate. As tensions rise, one thing becomes increasingly clear. Billy is not just fighting a legal battle anymore. He is fighting against a system that is slowly isolating him from everything and everyone he cares about. And the biggest emotional blow may still be coming. As the legal storm intensifies in Genoa City, the situation surrounding Billy Abbott becomes more complicated than anyone originally expected. What started as a clear-cut case built on AI-generated emails is now showing small but noticeable cracks. Behind the scenes, doubts begin to surface about the authenticity of the evidence. But before those doubts can turn into action, emotions explode in the real world. Billy and Victor Newman finally come face to face again, and this time, there is no room left for calm conversation. The tension between them is immediate. Billy is still under the emotional weight of his arrest, the humiliation, and the fear of what comes next. But what hurts him most is not just the legal situation, it is Victoria's perceived role in it. Billy does not hold back. He accuses Victoria of standing aside while his life collapsed. In his eyes, she had enough influence to question the evidence, enough power to slow things down, and enough emotional connection to at least try to protect him. But instead, he believes she allowed the system to move forward without resistance. Victoria, however, does not fully accept that version of events. She insists that she did not create the situation, nor did she intend for Billy to be arrested. From her perspective, she is dealing with a complex legal and corporate crisis involving Victor Newman's AI system, something far bigger than personal loyalty. But that explanation does little to calm Billy. The conversation quickly turns into a confrontation filled with years of unresolved emotion. Old wounds resurface. Past decisions are brought back into the present. What begins as a discussion about legal consequences turns into a breakdown of trust between two people who once shared a life together. Meanwhile, in another corner of Genoa City, Lily Winters and Holden Novak begin to notice something important. As they examine the AI-generated emails more closely, inconsistencies start to appear. Certain details do not match real-world patterns. Some timestamps feel unnatural. Certain formatting choices seem too perfect, almost as if they were constructed rather than naturally generated. Holden, in particular, begins to focus on these irregularities. He is not fully convinced yet, but something about the data feels off. The structure of the email suggests artificial creation rather than genuine communication. This becomes a turning point. Lily, already emotionally invested in Kane Ashby's situation, begins to wonder if everything they have been told is actually true. If the evidence is fabricated, then Kane's arrest, and by extension Billy's involvement, may all be built on a false foundation. As suspicion grows, the possibility of a deeper conspiracy begins to take shape. Could Victor Newman's AI system have produced misleading or manipulated data? And if so, who else might be responsible for controlling the outcome? At the same time, Kane Ashby's legal situation continues to hang in the balance, and Lily feels increasing pressure to act quickly before irreversible damage is done. Back in Billy's world, the emotional damage is already done. His relationship with Victoria is now fractured beyond easy repair, and his trust in the entire system around him is weakening fast. The more he thinks about it, the more he feels like he has been caught in a game where the rules were never meant to protect him. And yet, the truth is still hidden somewhere beneath layers of technology, power, and manipulation. As the episode closes in this chapter of the chaos, one question dominates everything. Is Billy Abbott truly guilty, or just another victim of an AI system that may not be as reliable as it appears? The pressure inside Genoa City reaches its highest point as the investigation surrounding the AI-generated emails starts to shift in an unexpected direction. What once looked like solid digital evidence is now being questioned at its core. The turning point begins when Lily Winters and Holden Novak push deeper into the technical structure of the emails. What they uncover slowly changes the entire direction of the case. The data does not behave like normal human-generated communication. Certain patterns appear too uniform. Some timestamps do not align with real-world behavior. And a few embedded details suggest that the content may not have been written naturally but constructed through an artificial system designed to simulate authenticity. This discovery creates a ripple effect. If the emails are not genuine, then the foundation of the entire case against Kane Ashby, Billy Abbott, and Phyllis Summers begins to collapse. At the same time, Kane's arrest suddenly looks less like justice and more like a potential manipulation of evidence. Lily is emotionally torn. On one side, Kane represents a complicated personal connection she is still trying to understand. On the other side, he is now directly tied to a situation that could also impact her family and her brother's life-threatening medical condition. The stakes are no longer just legal. They are deeply personal. Holden's role becomes even more important as he begins to articulate what others are only beginning to suspect, that Victor Newman's AI system may have generated or altered data in a way that creates a false narrative. Even if unintentional, the consequences are massive. Meanwhile, Victor Newman remains composed on the surface, but the situation is beginning to tighten around him. What was designed as a strategic advantage is now becoming a liability as questions about AI reliability and data integrity start to surface. For the first time, Victor's control over the situation is not absolute. Elsewhere, Billy Abbott is still dealing with the emotional aftermath of everything that has happened. His anger toward Victoria has not disappeared. If anything, it has hardened into something more permanent. The trust between them is broken. Billy cannot separate the legal chaos from the emotional betrayal he feels. To him, Victoria's lack of resistance, even if indirect, represents a line that was crossed. Victoria, however, is also facing pressure from every direction. She is caught between her family loyalty to Victor, her professional responsibilities, and her complicated history with Billy. There are no easy choices left, only consequences. Sally Spectra remains in the middle of this emotional storm, struggling to hold on to stability. The idea of building a future with Billy feels increasingly uncertain. The arrest, the accusations, and the growing tension with Victoria have all placed their relationship under extreme strain. What was once excitement about a new baby has now turned into fear about an unstable future. As everything converges, the truth about the AI system becomes the central question of Genoa City. Was it a brilliant tool used for corporate protection, or a flawed system capable of producing dangerously misleading evidence? And if the evidence is proven unreliable, then the fallout will be enormous. Kane's name could be cleared. Billy's arrest could be questioned. And Victor Newman himself could face serious backlash for relying on technology that may have crossed ethical or legal boundaries. But even as truth begins to surface, one thing remains clear. The damage has already been done. Relationships have fractured. Trust has collapsed. And the emotional consequences will not disappear even if the legal case does. In Genoa City, victories always come with a price. And this time, that price may be higher than anyone expected.